From the opinion pages of the Wall Street Journal, this is Potomac Watch.
Welcome back. I'm Paul Gigot with Kim Strassel and Kyle Peterson. And let's listen again to Adam Schiff talking on Sunday about the possibility of January 6th committee actions against Republican congressmen who were subpoenaed by the committee but declined to appear for a hearing.
We will also be considering what's the appropriate remedy for members of Congress who ignore a congressional subpoena, as well as the evidence that was so pertinent to our investigation and why we wanted to bring them in. So that will be something we'll be considering tomorrow. We have weighed what is the remedy for members of Congress. Is it a criminal referral to another branch of government, or is it better that the Congress police its own?
Censure?
Censure was something that we have considered. Ethics referrals is something we've considered. And we'll be disclosing tomorrow what our decision is.
I think it's important to mention, Kim, that this is unprecedented. The subpoena for sitting members of Congress by a committee here. In my view, the members of the Republicans were certainly within their right not to appear. So I guess they may resort to the Ethics Committee. But of course, that's not likely to go anywhere because Ethics Committee matters are almost always dealing with personal graft of some kind, certain violation of House rules or the law. And in this case, this is so highly politicized that I don't know that it would go anywhere. So this is really a kind of just a partisan shot against the Republicans.
Yeah, and there's a lot of reasons why it's not going to go anywhere if they do an ethics referral. Partly because the Ethics Committee is deliberately split equally. The Republicans that would on the committee would see this as a partisan referral to them and not act on it. All ethics matters expire at the end of Congresses. And if an ethics committee wants to push it off and keep it alive into the next Congress, there has to be a bipartisan vote to do that. You can be guaranteed that that would not happen here. Will that mean that the committee decides not to make the referrals? I wouldn't bet on it. That might be really their only shot because there'll be a lot of pushback even among Democrats of sending a criminal referral to the Department of Justice, given that Congress doesn't usually like to invite the executive branch into the management of its affairs. So the ethics referral might be the only way they have to take a shot at these guys. But again, you made the really important point. This was unprecedented, along with some other unprecedented actions of the committee. And I think that they should actually even be a little grateful that McCarthy and Jordan didn't roll over for it, because it would have set an extremely bad precedent in allowing any committee to then start hauling in members of the opposite party in front of them and grilling them in official proceedings. I don't think Democrats would like that to happen to them now that Republicans are in charge. So maybe this is a situation where everybody turns out better if nothing happens at all.
And speaking of precedents and arguably bad ones, the House Ways and Means Committee has obtained, after a long court fight, 6 years of Donald Trump's tax returns. And the question is, are they going to release them? The committee will vote Tuesday, the Democrats still in charge, whether to do that. They're supposed to keep those confidential when they do obtain them, which they can through special circumstances. But it looks like they can also release them under an obscure House rule, which allows them, if there is a report, a legislative report, to the rest of the Congress to release tax returns. Now, that may be the justification that the committee uses. There are suggestions that that's the case. Kyle, my own view of this is that, again, this would be a terrible precedent because we haven't had anything like this released in the past. No doubt, I thought from the beginning that Donald Trump should have released his tax returns in 2016, but he didn't. He still won election. And now when you get the Ways and Means Committee obtaining tax records like this and then making them public if they do, this is essentially weaponizing this politically. And it's not going to end with Donald Trump, I can tell you that. Republicans will argue that one bad turn deserves another. And who knows whose tax returns they will solicit and attempt to release next.
Well, I do find it hard to imagine Republicans going down that road. First of all, every other presidential candidate in my recent memory has released their tax returns. But I do find it easier to imagine Democrats going further down this road. Remember what we're talking about here. The IRS has a presidential audit program under which the president's tax returns and the vice president's tax returns are supposed to be audited every year. And so this is purportedly an investigation of whether that's happening or happening the way it's supposed to be doing so. But I find it very hard to understand how publicly releasing those tax returns would advance that in any way. And that's even granting that they have any reason to review them in the first place. If you're worried about the audit program, it seems to me the first thing that you do is you call up the IRS head and you ask him about the audit program. But to your point about the precedent, what I think might happen down the road is if there's other people that, for public policy reasons, Democrats want to highlight their tax returns, let's say Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk. I mean, we've had the IRS leaking a lot of that information to ProPublica, which has done stories based on private tax information. And how much more of a stretch is it to have Elizabeth Warren or some sort of class warrior Democrat in the Senate or in the House saying that we're going to put this in the public record for reasons of advancing our public policy, the wealth tax, what have you? I certainly think that this would be a precedent for that.
Well, what about Hunter Biden? I mean, why wouldn't Republicans decide that's part of their Hunter Biden investigation, get his tax returns, see where the income came from, see how much of it was from foreign sources, and say this is an investigation into foreign corruption with a legislative purpose? I think that's entirely possible.
I suppose that's a fair point, but Republicans have been so defensive of IRS privacy that it would seem to undermine the argument that they've been making with regard to President Trump's tax returns.
Well, but that may be true. But the idea, once you breach a norm like this, then those defenses go by the board. I mean, Republicans didn't like the independent counsel statute either, neither did I. But once it was used against Republicans, they decided, okay, well, we're going to use it against Bill Clinton. And indeed it was. So that's the problem that this poses. And to my mind, when you think about all of this, one of the issues here that I think the tax returns, but also the subpoenas we talked about, and perhaps the potential indictment of a former president, which would be extraordinary in American history, is that the obsession with Donald Trump has caused, and his norm breaking, which is undeniable, has caused Democrats and the press corps to break norms themselves. And that creates a spiral downward. And I wish that some of our colleagues in the press had had more faith and trust in voters and the durability of American institutions, which I think have actually held up pretty well throughout this, Kim.
Yeah, I totally agree. And think about the sweep of some of those norms that have been broken in the name of policing Trump. You know, we have committees running around engaging in investigations that, let's be honest, are untethered from any legislative purpose. We have Nancy Pelosi stripping Republicans of their committee assignments and blocking the minority's pick to this special committee. We have subpoenas of other members. We had secret subpoenas for a while. The January 6th committee seemed to back off from that. But in the beginning, they were issuing subpoenas and they were telling the subjects of them, telcos and other companies, do not let the people whose information we're trying to seek here know about these subpoenas because we don't want them to engage in any litigation to stop us. That's really scary. Now this tax authority, which, by the way, no matter what anyone tells you, this is extremely rare. Only the House Means Committee chairman has this 6103 authority to access tax returns. It's been used incredibly sparingly in the past, and now we have this new norm, as it were, I guess, that anyone's tax returns we can take and throw them out there. It's all very corrosive to institutions. And yeah, Donald Trump broke a lot of norms himself, particularly just in his behavior as a president. But some of the things we're talking about here are long-standing institutions. And if we didn't think Congress was a big enough mess already, we've now laid the groundwork for things to get a lot worse.
All right. Thank you both. We shall see how events unfold this week, and we'll have more comment and reporting on them as the week unfolds here in what looks to be a busy political pre-Christmas week. Thank you all for listening. And don't forget, you can reach the latest episode of Potomac Watch anytime. Just ask your smart speaker, Play the Opinion Potomac Watch Podcast. That is Play the Opinion Potomac Watch Podcast. Of course, we're here every day on Potomac Watch, so thanks for listening, and we hope you're with us tomorrow and the rest of the week. Thank you.